Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive today? We're going to be tackling a pretty interesting idea, the idea of strategically playing the fool. And to guide us through this, we'll be looking at the work of Arthur Schopenhauer.
Yes, Schopenhauer.
19th century philosopher. Pretty brilliant guy, but also, let's be honest, kind of a pessimist.
Definitely a bit on the gloomy side.
Yeah, but maybe he was onto something. Because today we're going to explore his belief that sometimes being underestimated can actually be to your advantage.
Now that's an idea that might surprise some people.
Yeah, it kind of goes against everything we're usually told, right? Like, we should always strive to be the smartest person in the room, to show off what we know.
Right. Always got to be on top of our game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Schopenhauer had a different perspective. So have you ever found yourself, like, intentionally downplaying your intelligence?
Interesting question.
Maybe holding back in a conversation or pretending not to understand something.
Maybe more often than I'd care to admit.
Well, Schopenhauer might say you were onto something.
There.
He was really fascinated by human nature, particularly what he saw as our kind of obsession with appearances.
Right. He was all about getting to the core of how we operate, even the not so flattering parts.
Exactly. And one of his key insights was that we often care more about how others perceive us than about our own genuine happiness.
Yeah, he even called this fixation on appearances a peculiar weakness of humanity.
And that really rings true, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
We've all felt that pressure, to appear intelligent, even if it means sacrificing our own well-being sometimes.
Totally. Like, sometimes you just don't want to get into a debate or have to explain something, but you feel this pressure to prove yourself.
And Schopenhauer would probably say, why bother?
Right. So he argued that this constant striving to seem brilliant can actually backfire.
Oh, yeah. It can totally sabotage you in the long run.
In what way?
Well, he believed that when you're constantly trying to show off how smart you are, it can actually breed envy and resentment in others.
So instead of making friends and influencing people, you're just making them jealous.
Basically.
And Schopenhauer had some firsthand experience with this too, right? With his own mother.
Oh, you're talking about that letter.
Yeah, the letter his mother wrote him when he was just 19, I think.
Oh, that's a classic Schopenhauer story.
It's a pretty amazing example of how his intellectual intensity could rub people the wrong way. What stood out to you about that letter?
Well, for me, it was just how blunt she was, even for a mother. It was clear that his need to constantly be clever, as she put it, was really pushing people away.
Yeah, she basically told him straight up that if he wasn't so smart, his intensity would just be seen as ridiculous. But because he was actually intelligent, it just came across as irritating.
Ouch. Right between the eyes.
It makes you wonder if that experience shaped his whole philosophy of strategic restraint.
I think it definitely played a role. He came up with this term strategic stupidity, which is maybe a little harsh, but it basically means choosing when to downplay your intelligence.
When to, intentionally appear less intelligent than you actually are.
Right. Not actually being stupid, of course, but choosing your moments.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is. But Schopenhauer believed that in certain social situations, letting others feel like they have the intellectual upper hand could actually lead to better outcomes for you.
So it's almost like a form of manipulation.
Some might see it that way. But he had this interesting analogy. He compared it to seeking warmth, like how we naturally gravitate toward a fire for physical warmth.
Okay, I'm following.
So Schopenhauer believed that we also have this kind of psychological need to feel superior to others, to feel warmer in a sense.
So by downplaying our intelligence, we're sort of giving that warmth to others, making them feel more comfortable and maybe more receptive to us.
That was his thinking, basically, that it's less about deception and more about understanding these subtle social dynamics.
So it's like playing a role almost.
In a way, yeah. But it's all about being strategic, understanding when it's appropriate to play that role and when it's not.
That's a pretty nuanced approach to intelligence.
It is, and I think it really challenges our usual assumptions about what it means to be smart.
Definitely. So how do we actually put this into practice? Like, when do we know when to hold back and when to let our brilliance shine? So this idea of creating social warmth by, not always being the smartest person in the room. It's interesting, but wouldn't that be kind of detrimental in the long run?
You mean like if you're always holding back?
Yeah, especially in professional settings.
Right.
Where competence is so important.
Right. I can see where you're coming from.
You don't want to seem incompetent.
Exactly. But Schopenhauer wasn't suggesting we, permanently adopt this persona of, being less intelligent. It's more about being discerning.
Discerning.
Yeah, like understanding when it's actually beneficial to show off your intelligence and when it might be better to hold back a little.
So it's all about choosing your battles.
Exactly.
But how do we know which battles to choose? Like, how do we decide when to, play dumb and when to actually show what we know?
Well, it really comes down to context in your goals. Like, what are you trying to achieve in that specific situation?
Right.
Sometimes proving how smart you are just isn't worth the potential social cost.
So it's like a cost-benefit analysis.
Kind of.
Like, okay, if I correct this person, will it make them feel stupid? Will it create tension?
Exactly. And sometimes the answer is, yeah, it probably will.
And in those cases, it's better to just let it slide.
Maybe not let it slide completely, but maybe approach it in a way that doesn't make the other person feel like they're being put on the spot.
That makes sense. So it's not about being dishonest or anything.
No, not at all. It's more about being strategic and also kind.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it as an act of kindness.
It can be.
How so?
Well, by not always trying to be the smartest person in the room, you're creating space for others to shine.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like you're giving them a chance to feel intelligent and capable.
Right, and that can actually strengthen relationships.
But wouldn't this approach also make you vulnerable to being taken advantage of?
It's a valid concern, for sure. You don't want to be a doormat.
Exactly. So where's the line between strategic restraint and just letting people walk all over you?
That's where the intelligence part comes in.
Okay, so you still need to use your judgment.
Definitely. You're not just passively submitting. Schopenhauer was all about using your intelligence to assess each situation.
And deciding when to assert yourself and when to hold back.
Right, it's a balancing act.
So this strategic stupidity, it's not really about being stupid at all.
It's about being smart about how you use your intelligence.
It's like sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is choose not to show how intelligent you are.
Exact.
That's kind of mind-blowing when you think about
I
it.
know, it's pretty counterintuitive.
This whole conversation has really shifted my perspective on intelligence.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's not just about, being right all the time or having all the answers.
It's about understanding people and navigating social situations in a way that benefits everyone.
That's a really powerful idea.
I think so too.
So this William James quote you mentioned earlier about the art of being wise.
Yeah.
The art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook.
That's one of my favorites.
It really fits with what we've been talking about, doesn't it?
It does. Both Schopenhauer and James, they both emphasize this idea of knowing when to hold back, when to choose harmony over being right.
And sometimes choosing kindness over cleverness.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that there's more to life than just being the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, this deep dive has really got me thinking.
Me too. It's always good to revisit these classic thinkers.
So we've talked a lot about the theory behind strategic stupidity. But how do we actually apply these ideas to our own lives?
Right. How do we make it practical?
Like, what's step one?
Well, I think the first step is self-awareness.
Okay.
Really understanding our own tendencies. Do we constantly feel this need to showcase our intelligence? Are we always trying to one-up everyone else?
So it's about recognizing those patterns.
Yeah, those default behaviors.
Once we're aware of them, then what?
Then we can start making conscious choices about how we want to interact with others.
So instead of just reacting automatically, we can actually choose a different approach.
Exactly. We can choose to listen more, to observe more, and to resist that urge to always be the smartest person in the room.
It's like being more mindful of our interactions.
It is very much like that.
By being present and aware, we can choose humility over ego.
And kindness over cleverness.
It's about creating a more harmonious environment for everyone.
Right, and it's empowering to realize that we have that choice.
Yeah, we don't have to be slaves to our egos.
We can choose to express our intelligence in a way that benefits everyone.
I love that. That's a really powerful message.
And I think it's at the heart of Schopenhauer's philosophy.
He was really ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
He was, and his message feels especially relevant today, in a world that's so obsessed with competition and individual achievement.
It's like he's reminding us that there's another way. A way that prioritizes collaboration and kindness.
And a sense of shared humanity.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And I'm excited to start incorporating these ideas into my own life.
That's great to hear. Remember, it's a journey.
Not a destination.
Exactly. Be patient with yourself and just keep practicing.
Thank you so much for guiding me through this fascinating exploration of Schopenhauer's philosophy. It's been truly eye-opening.
My pleasure. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Where in your life Could a little strategic foolishness serve you well?
That's a good question.
Could it help you smooth over a tense interaction? Or maybe create a more harmonious work environment?
It's definitely something to think about.
It is. And the answer might surprise you.
It's funny, thinking about this whole playing the fool thing,
Yeah.
it's like the opposite of what we're always told, right?
How so?
Like with social media and everything,
Yeah.
that's all about self-promotion, right?
Oh, yeah. Gotta build that brand.
Exactly. But Schopenhauer is saying, hey, sometimes it's actually better to hold back.
To kind of fly under the radar.
Right. And it's not just about avoiding envy and all that.
Yeah, it's about something deeper, right?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that Schopenhauer thought it could actually help you.
Help you cover for the defects of others?
Yes. That's it. It sounds kind of harsh, but...
Yeah, not the most flattering way to put it.
But the idea is like, everyone has their moments, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Where they're not at their best. Or maybe they say something that's just totally wrong.
And in those moments, you have a choice.
To correct them? Or
Yeah, or to just kind of let it slide.
Which is hard, right? Especially if you know you're right.
Can be so tempting to jump in and be like, well, actually...
But Schopenhauer's saying that sometimes it's actually more intelligent to just...
To choose your battles.
Yeah, and to prioritize, harmony over being right.
Which I think is a really valuable lesson.
It is. It's about being sensitive to other people's...
Egos.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes, honestly, protecting their ego is more important than proving your own intelligence.
And that takes a lot of, maturity and, emotional intelligence.
For sure.
Because you need to be able to read the situation and understand the impact your words are going to have.
It's like knowing when to speak up and knowing when to just...
Keep your mouth shut.
Diplomatically, of course.
This whole deep dive has been so interesting.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
We started with this idea of playing the fool being strategic, but it's really about so much more than that.
It's about understanding human nature.
And about choosing kindness.
And recognizing that true intelligence isn't just about what you know.
It's about how you use what you know.
Exactly.
It's about being wise, not just clever.
Schopenhauer was all about that.
And I think his message is so relevant today,
How so?
Well, with all the pressure to be perfect and to always be the best.
Right, gotta be hustling all the time.
It's easy to forget that sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is just be kind.
And to step back and let others shine.
I love that.
Me too.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me.
Anytime.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on another deep dive. We hope you learned something new today, and maybe even got a little inspired to try out some strategic foolishness in your own lives.
Until next time.